Could we see a trade between the New York Islanders and the Vegas Golden Knights? Vegas definitely needs a goalie, and the Islanders are desperate to make a move to try to improve this team before the season gets underway. Plus, we also have some more signings to discuss, and I want to talk about Nathan MacKinnon's Stanley Cup parade today in Halifax, Nova Scotia. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As you can see, I'm actually back in my normal recording location here at home. I've been a long time away, but obviously things are back to normal. Just arrived here not too long ago. Of course, I started my day today in Halifax, Nova Scotia. This morning was the Nathan MacKinnon Stanley Cup parade. If you saw earlier, I did post a really short video that from the footage I took at the parade earlier today. There was a huge crowd that showed up to support the hometown hero in Halifax. Of course, Nathan MacKinnon's from technically Cole Harbour, which is just a neighboring community basically, but of course he grew up right next to Halifax and played his junior hockey in Halifax for the Mooseheads, and he wanted to do the parade and celebrate with all the local fans in downtown Halifax. So it just worked out. I didn't go there specifically for that. It just worked out conveniently for me that I was already nearby in the area and was able to go and take it in. Obviously, Nathan MacKinnon, and I'll show you a little bit of footage here, some still images and video clips here while I talk through this a little bit. But obviously, the video clips you see are from my own recording, and of course, some of the photos I took myself, and some would be from the Athletics' Peter Baugh, who covers the Colorado Avalanche, who was in town covering the event as well. And of course, the Halifax Mooseheads people as well were there, obviously doing a lot of photos and video clips, etc. So some of that does credit to them for some of those images, but all the video recordings you'll see are directly from me. But obviously MacKinnon had some friends with him here in town. He had some of his teammates, including Captain Gabriel Landeskog, Andrew Cogliano, who may not have been with the team real long, was a deadline pickup, but was a huge pickup. I know MacKinnon and a lot of the other vets talked quite highly about how Cogliano was such a key piece to helping them and was instrumental in a leadership capacity, especially to helping them get over the hump and get the Stanley Cup victory. So I knew they had kind of gotten close and were quite fond of Cogliano, so I'm not really surprised to see him there. But obviously some of those guys were with them, and of course there was some of the Halifax Mooseheads current players around as well, and it was just a really well done event. Of course, MacKinnon started today over by the arena. They had a little stage set up, and then he made his way through the parade route in downtown Halifax. It was quite the celebration. Obviously, I know these kind of parades take place often throughout Canada, the U.S., and other places around the world when teams get their Stanley Cup championships and players get their date with the cup. But of course, it's not often, at least in my neck of the woods, in Atlantic Canada especially, where we don't have a ton of players. But fortunately for me, I guess, I have been able to get to a few of these. Of course, in my hometown of Fredericton, Jake Allen won a cup a few years back. MacKinnon, of course, Crosby's got some cups to his name in the same place as MacKinnon as well. So it's certainly something I feel fortunate to be a part of, and it was fun to take part in. So obviously it was a good part of the day. If you didn't watch the video, it's already posted to the channel earlier today. It's just only like a minute and a half, 2 minutes long. Just some footage to see Nate MacKinnon celebrating with the Lord Stanley. So, of course, fun day. On to some other news, though. Well, we do have a few signings to discuss. The Pittsburgh Penguins have signed a college free agent prospect, Jack St. Ivani. He gets a 2-year entry-level contract. Obviously, he's a little bit older player because he's obviously not going to get the 3-year ELC at that point. But he's played 4 years of college hockey. He played 2 years at Yale and 2 years at Boston College after transferring. He was actually a Philadelphia Flyers 2018 draft pick, which would have been the time that Ron Hextall was at the helm there. So current Penguins GM, Ron Hextall, while Flyers GM, drafted him. Of course, they never signed him. He played out the 4 years in college hockey. Now, as the Pittsburgh GM, brings him to that organization. So obviously he's seen something back then that he liked and continues to feel that way. So they're going to give him an opportunity here. We'll see what he can do in the Penguins organization. Obviously, he'll definitely need time in the minors, I'm sure, to get adjusted and see where things go. The Buffalo Sabres have also signed a prospect, 2021 7th rounder Tyson Kozak gets a contract. Of course, he's born in Manitoba, center iceman from the Portland Winterhawks. Not often you see a 7th round pick, and just a year after being drafted, already getting his contract for an ELC. So that's impressive. Obviously, the Sabres are quite pleased with his development in his Draft Plus 1 season. And the Chicago Blackhawks have also signed a college free agent prospect, and that's Cole Gutman, who's played 4 years at the University of Denver. He was originally a 2017 draft pick from the Tampa Bay Lightning. So, of course, we know just a few days ago there was a cutoff of a bunch of players who had their rights expiring, who were playing different teams of college hockey and hadn't signed pro contracts yet, and they were obviously had become free agents since the deals were not reached with their clubs that held their draft rights. So we got a few of them moving on to new teams. Now, onto the rumor mill for the day. As I mentioned, could we see a deal between the Islanders and the Vegas Golden Knights, and possibly a subsequent deal between the Islanders and maybe the San Jose Sharks, depending on how things go down. Now, today's discussion is from the New York Islanders Hockey Now, Stefan Rosner. Rosner wrote a recent article talking about the potential deal that we could see between the Islanders and Vegas in regards to Semyon Varlamov. Of course, we know Vegas is without Robin Lehner for the entire upcoming 22-23 NHL season. Right now, for goaltending, they have Laurent Brossoit, Michael Hutchison, and of course Logan Thompson. Brossoit would be the most experienced out of the three when it comes to games played, but he himself is also recovering from a hip surgery as well. He is ahead of schedule. I'm not sure if he's going to be ready to start the year or not. There is some questions there, but even if he's not, I don't believe he's going to be out for like super long. He's not like going to miss the year like Lehner. He will play this year based on at least what I've seen so far, but there could be other reports that maybe we'll get further updates that could change. I don't know, but as of right now, I don't have any information to suggest that Brossoit will not be available for the upcoming season, although he could miss the start of it. So that doesn't leave a whole lot of experience to start the year with the potential tandem of Thompson and Hutchison. So obviously, right now, I've seen some reports saying that Vegas is likely to go into the year with that as their goaltending tandem. I guess throughout training camp, you could see potential other goaltenders maybe be put through waivers. Lots of teams have 3 or 4 goalies that either on one-way deals or require contracts because they're not waivers exempt anymore. There could be waiver claims that might be interesting to them, but is there really going to be anything too significant that another team is willing to just put on waivers and give away? Not likely. I mean, a lot of times players get put on waivers just for the purpose of being signed to the AHL, which tells you they're primarily an AHL goaltender. That's just how it goes, right? So Vegas is probably not going to find anything too strong. Could they find something? Maybe, but there's not much out there without swinging a fairly significant trade with another NHL team. For starting type goaltenders. There's not many around right now. So obviously it talks about the possibility of the Islanders and the Golden Knights swinging a deal, sending Varlamov to Vegas, possibly in exchange for Brossoit. Because here's the problem is that, Brossoit, like I said, his status isn't completely clear. I'm not sure where things are at with his health, but I do believe he is going to play this year. He makes a lot less money than Varlamov. So that would be a cap savings for the Islanders, so they could hopefully find another move and change up the goaltending a little bit. It helps the Vegas Golden Knights because they get a more experienced starting goaltender to kind of hold on the fort there while Robin Lehner is out this year. He's only got a 1-year deal, so they're not committed to Varlamov long term, and it can kind of reassess a little bit further down the road. But do the Islanders really want to do that? If Brossoit is not going to be ready to start the season, that creates another question mark for their goaltending needs. They have Ilya Sorokin, who can certainly play the bulk of the games and be your primary starter, probably log 50 to 60 games. Who's going to play 20, 25 games and give you that backup role and that solid minutes that you really need? It solves a bit of an issue, creates some cap space and maybe make another move and improve other areas of the team, but it doesn't it kind of creates another problem. So ultimately, the article goes on to discuss wondering if Vegas would be willing to include young defenseman Nick Hague. Of course, Hague still needs a new contract, so he needs to be signed. Now, could Vegas put Brossoit on long-term injury reserve as well if he's not going to start the season? Sign Hague, go into the season with those other 2 goalies, and move on? It is possible, but it's just going to create a situation where they kind of kick it down the road a little bit and have to make more decisions later once Brossoit is able to play. So, do they want to do that or not? Would Hague be a player they'd want to move? It's probably not exactly, high on their radar, but at the same time, teams might be able to take advantage because they do have some, other defensemen. Obviously, you have Pietrangelo, you have Shea Theodore, you still have Zach Whitecloud, who's a fairly young defenseman. They don't exactly have a deep prospect pool. They do have a couple interesting defense prospects coming, including Lucas Cormier, who's playing with Team Canada right now in the World Junior Championships. But he's going to need some time, likely at the AHL level, a year or two before he's willing to, if his development continues, to make that jump. I mean, I do think he could make the jump, and I think he could be a pretty good NHL offensive D, but that's going to be a little bit getting there. Of course, Hag, 6'6", left shot D. He's often been paired in the past with Alex Pietrangelo. He's had some games where he's logged some big minutes. Could be a very interesting piece for the New York Islanders. Now, of course, we know they picked up Romanov from the Montreal Canadiens at the NHL draft, so there was some improvements to the back end, but Hag could be an interesting player for them. I mean, he's the player who shouldn't cost a ton of money, but at the same time would really shore up the left side. I mean, there is possible here that they could go in a training camp and maybe they're comfortable that Robin Salo could make that jump and take a full-time spot. But what if they get to training camp and they don't feel he's really ready or capable of handling that role? Then their D-core is certainly not going to be, as good as it could be, we could say. Now, obviously, it should get better because you're not going to have the 40-year-olds back there like Chera and Green, who did not have good seasons last year and were a big part of the problem. So obviously, it's bound to be a bit better just for what they've already done. But, adding a guy like Hag, who's younger and got good size and can play top 4 minutes for you, it would help shelter Romanov a little bit. Wouldn't necessarily force him into a top 4 role right away. You could maybe put him on the third pair just to make sure, that things are progressing with him. That you're kind of, sheltering him a little bit and making sure you're not getting him exposed too much early on, because he is still a young defenseman. Not that Hag is, super, a ton more experience, but I think he's a little bit more prepared for that than Romanov might be at that point. So if they would be willing to trade Hag for Varlamov, I think that could be a great deal for both teams. But then, of course, if they did that, that still doesn't answer the question of who's going to be your other goaltender for the Islanders. Well, then, of course, you have reports out of San Jose and Sheng Peng, who covers them as a beat writer, saying that obviously they have 3 goalies, which is, not exactly surprising here, and they should be wanting to move one before the season gets underway. Again, not surprising information here. We've talked about this before, but James Reimer is reportedly available for as much as a second-round pick. Maybe could Lou finally get something done and actually get a couple of deals here? I mean, really, like he's, from what we've heard, he's unable to move money out. So a lot of these other moves that they've been linked to are not happening. I mean, Nazem Kadri, like for prime example, I think he kind of held on as long as he could. I do believe all the rumors we heard with the Islanders were true, that he did have discussions and that there probably was a verbal agreement. But I think the same thing was going on in Calgary, and obviously Calgary pulled the trigger first, and you gotta get your sure thing. So ultimately, Calgary gets Kadri, and Lou strikes out yet again. I know the fans and I know a lot of media are really just had it with Lou, and he's been getting a verbal lashing in the media here as of late and online through social media. Fans and, like I said, media are ready for change. They want him to go. He hasn't been able to make any moves, and it's frustrating, and I get it. This team, should they bounce back based on everything that we saw last year, the COVID? There was a lot of other circumstances that certainly impacted them absolutely 100%. I think, that they should be better, even without doing a whole lot. But look at the teams around them, as I've talked about. Lots of other teams between the Atlantic Division and Metro Division in that Eastern Conference have gotten better already and got better last year, and it's not going to get easier. And they got to continue to evolve here, and the team could not score enough. They need more offense, there's no doubt. They have solid goaltending. The blue line should be better, but they got to be able to score, and they need to be able to address that. And the rumors we're talking about today wouldn't necessarily do that, but it would free up the space to do it. And ultimately, they could, get a cheaper goaltender to play with Sorokin, so it gives them an extra, upwards of close to $3 million in cap space. That would be big and very helpful. It gets them another young defenseman to add to their mix in case Salo's not ready. It kind of creates more depth there and some more size on the back end, which would be good as well. And then at the same time, you get to sign Nicholas Hag, so you're not going to get full savings, but still, look, we don't know the contracts either for Dobson. We don't know the contracts for Romanov. We don't know the contract for Bellows. And there's rumors and reportedly deals in place, but they're not registered, so we don't know the full-time contract details. I mean, I've seen Elliot Friedman on NHL Network again talking about the fact that they still believe that is done, but nobody really can confirm what they are. So it's unfortunate, but obviously Islanders reporters and writers continue to write articles and talk about what they feel should be done. This is an interesting idea, an interesting move that we could see Lou evolve here from his long summer snap to get done. Is it possible? It does make a lot of sense. I think if they're going to go after a player, though, in the forward group, it would be JT Miller in Vancouver. I think he's probably one of the few players left that's known to be available for the right deal. We know that there was talks before, even though they wanted to deny them. There was enough insiders with enough sources and inside scoop to suggest that there definitely was talks. It's just a case that once the information leaked, they wanted to deny it for whatever reason, whatever. It doesn't matter at this point because it was quite a while ago now at the draft. But could they revisit that? And if they save some money here by moving Varlamov, then it could create a little bit extra room to go after a player like that. But of course, there's no point in getting Miller unless you can extend him. So we'll see. Either way, the Islanders need to wake up, make some moves. Here's some interesting thoughts from some of their local writers talking about what they could do. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments and we'll talk about it further. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.